Sophia had always been the epitome of a perfect wife. She was devoted, caring, and beautiful. But beneath the surface of her seemingly perfect marriage to Daniel, a storm was brewing. Daniel was a hard-working man, often away on business trips, leaving Sophia alone in their large, echoing house. The loneliness gnawed at her, and when she met Lucas, an enigmatic artist, she found herself drawn into a passionate affair. Their meetings were discreet, held in secret places far from the prying eyes of her small town. Each encounter filled Sophia with a thrill she hadn't felt in years. However, this forbidden love was not without consequence. Soon, Sophia discovered she was pregnant, and the child was not Daniel's. Panic set in. Sophia knew she had to confess to Daniel before the truth became undeniable. One stormy night, she sat him down in their dimly lit living room, the sound of rain pounding against the windows. "Daniel," she began, her voice trembling, "I have something to tell you. I've been unfaithful, and I'm pregnant. The baby is not yours." Daniel's face turned ashen. He stood up, his eyes filling with a mix of rage and sorrow. "How could you do this, Sophia?" he demanded, his voice breaking. "After everything we've been through." Sophia's tears fell freely as she pleaded for his forgiveness. But something in Daniel's gaze shifted, and he turned away from her, walking out into the rain. Sophia was left alone, sobbing, in their once happy home. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel remained distant. He spoke little to Sophia, and when he did, his words were laced with bitterness. But it wasn't long before strange occurrences began to haunt their home. Sophia started seeing shadows moving in the corners of her vision. At night, she heard whispers, voices she didn't recognize. Objects would move on their own, and cold spots appeared throughout the house. One night, Sophia woke to find Daniel standing at the foot of their bed, his eyes glazed over, staring at her with an unsettling intensity. "It's the child," he muttered, "it's cursed." Sophia tried to shake him out of his trance, but he remained unresponsive. Frightened, she turned on the lights, only to find that Daniel had disappeared. She searched the house, calling his name, but he was nowhere to be found. The whispers grew louder, and the shadows seemed to gather around her, as if mocking her. In her desperation, Sophia reached out to Lucas. She needed someone to confide in, someone who might understand. They met in a secluded cafe, where she poured out her fears. Lucas listened intently, his face growing pale. "Sophia," he said quietly, "there's something I need to tell you. Before we met, I was dabbling in some dark arts. I wanted inspiration for my art, something otherworldly. I didn't think it would actually work, but I may have summoned something." Sophia stared at him in disbelief. "What are you saying, Lucas? Are you telling me that my child is cursed?" Lucas nodded, his eyes filled with guilt. "I think whatever I summoned has attached itself to our child. And now it's coming for us." Fear gripped Sophia's heart. She knew she had to act fast to save herself and her unborn child. She returned home to find Daniel waiting for her, his face a mask of rage and despair. "Where have you been?" he demanded. Sophia took a deep breath and told him everything. About Lucas, the affair, the curse. Daniel listened, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he stood up and walked to the fireplace, where an old family Bible sat. "We need to cleanse this house," he said firmly. "We need to protect our child." Together, they performed rituals they found in the ancient book. They lit candles, recited prayers, and sprinkled holy water in every corner of the house. For a while, it seemed to work. The whispers quieted, the shadows receded. But it wasn't long before the entity fought back with a vengeance. One night, Sophia woke to find herself paralyzed, unable to move. She watched in horror as the shadows coalesced into a dark figure at the foot of her bed. It reached out with skeletal fingers, touching her swollen belly. A cold, raspy voice echoed in her mind. "The child is mine." Sophia screamed, breaking free from her paralysis. Daniel burst into the room, and the figure vanished. She collapsed into his arms, sobbing uncontrollably. "We need to leave this place," she begged. "We need to get away." Daniel nodded. They packed their belongings and fled to a distant relative's house, hoping the entity wouldn't follow. But the terror was far from over. The whispers followed them, growing louder each night. The dark figure appeared in their dreams, always reaching for Sophia's belly. Desperate, they sought the help of a renowned occultist. The old woman listened to their story and agreed to help. She performed a series of complex rituals, calling upon ancient forces to banish the entity. For a while, it seemed to work. The house grew quiet, and the nightmares ceased. Sophia and Daniel dared to hope that they had escaped the curse. But on the night their child was born, the entity returned with a vengeance. The room grew icy cold, and the lights flickered. Sophia screamed as she gave birth, feeling a dark presence closing in. As the baby's cries filled the room, the dark figure materialized once more. It reached out for the child, but this time, Daniel stepped forward, holding a silver dagger the occultist had given them. "Leave us," he commanded, his voice strong and unwavering. "You have no power here." The entity hesitated, its form wavering. Daniel advanced, chanting the ancient incantation they had learned. The figure screamed, a terrible, soul-piercing sound, and dissolved into nothingness. The room fell silent. Sophia held her newborn child, tears streaming down her face. Daniel collapsed beside them, exhausted but relieved. The curse had been broken. But the scars remained. Sophia and Daniel moved to a new town, far away from the horrors they had faced. They vowed to protect their child, to keep their family safe from the darkness that had nearly destroyed them. But in the quiet moments, when the wind howled outside their new home, Sophia could still hear the faint whispers, a chilling reminder of the price they had paid for their unfaithful love.